Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So today we're going to talk about Northern Vietnam. So I broke this video down into three parts. Part one was about Southern Vietnam and kind of like my experience, and the second part was about Central Vietnam, and the final part of this video will be Northern Vietnam. So we talked about South Vietnam. That's like Phucan and all that area. That is good if you want to fly into. South Vietnam is usually the easiest to fly into if you're an international tourist. So I recommend that people fly in there and check out like what you want to see. Central Vietnam is the best place to live, but Northern Vietnam is the best place to visit, and I'm going to explain why. So Hanoi has a lot of hype. Yeah, is it overhyped? No, I don't think so. I think it deserves the hype, you know? And the cool thing about like Hanoi is there's this place called Echo Park, and it's outside of Hanoi. And if you want to live in Hanoi and you love Hanoi, it's good. The only problem is it's a long way to commute in the city. It's like a 30-minute commute, but with work traffic it turns into 2 hours because it's so packed, so densely populated. But Hanoi is awesome. Like as a tourist, they have like a lake, this like famous lake, and it's cool to see the locals and everything. And in Vietnam, they say that the people in the north are not friendly and the people in the south. But in my opinion, I thought the people in the north were more friendly towards the people in the south. And I think that's because of history. I say that people in the south, you know, they fought in the Vietnam War against the Americans. They fought for the Americans. Let me fix that. The South fought for the Americans, I guess, quote unquote. And the North didn't. You know, they were communists. But I say the South is more friendlier to tourists. But in my opinion, I think the North were. Like when I went to places that weren't foreigners, where like people were very friendly, like more friendly than people in Cambodia. And it's just that they didn't have like foreign exposure. Like I became like the whole town's English speaker. So that was kind of cool. Like it was very different than South Vietnam. I felt like the people in North Vietnam were more genuine. Like for me, like I felt like South Vietnam was more similar to America. Like Saigon to me felt like an American city. I know that may feel weird, but that's what it felt like to me. Northern Vietnam was what you think of like a deep Asian culture. But anyways, I'm gonna get on to my experience. So when I went to Hanoi, I stayed in Hanoi for like 2 months looking for an English teaching job. And I found some jobs in Echo Park, but it was like complicated though, because my situation, I don't have a degree. So the problem is that I had experience from Cambodia, so that was kind of like my hiring. And the thing was, I could have probably found a job in Hanoi in the city, but I didn't want to do that because originally I started teaching English in person in Phnom Penh, and I hated it. You know, maybe it was my life situation at the time, but the city is just crazy and chaotic and stresses you. Hanoi is like that too. Once you get away from all the tourist stuff, and after 2 weeks after that, it starts wearing away. You know, the tourist stuff's awesome. Like 4 days, Hanoi is one of the coolest cities in the world. But then after that, like you get out of Hanoi and you go to Echo Park. Echo Park's amazing, but if you have an online job, you're a digital nomad, Echo Park's awesome. It's a nice place that has a nice lake with swans, and family comes out, and it's kind of like a rich area. But if you're a foreigner, you can afford it. Rent's about like $500 to $800 in this area, but it's very nice. And the food is affordable at the supermarket, very affordable, very different than Cambodia. And the people are friendly. I feel like people in the north are more like standoff to you, but once they get to know you as a foreigner, they're more friendly than the people in the south. You know, I feel like the people in the north were actually more friendly. I think it's just people think of the culture, you know, and I don't know, it's so weird. Vietnam is like what people say. Everyone's situation is different. But anyways, I started there and I got hired on a job, and they told me that they were going to give me like the TRC, so it's like the visa to work permit or whatever, like a work visa. And the lady told me it was going to be 6 months, so I think she was bullcrapping me, and she signed me on. So I'm sure I could have found a job, but I would have had to work under the table, if that makes sense. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do a visa run in Vietnam because I don't know how much longer they're going to keep the e-visa that you get 90 days. you know, and I also had my partner with me too, so it was just a lot for us to leave every 3 months, and I was flying. And even though I was doing like cheap budgeted flights, it was just a lot, you know. And yeah, I could have came to Laos or Cambodia, but in Cambodia I ran out of my visa, so I had to restart that whole process again. In Laos I needed a whole visa page. In China, I could go to China, I got the visa for that, but I got a visa for 10 years as a US citizen and 60 days, but China might start asking questions and keep going over the border. They're strict. And then with my partner, it was way complicated for her to get a Chinese visa. So anyways, I just scrapped that, like scrapped the teaching English in Hanoi. And they have like cool golf clubs to do there that are very affordable. And if you really want to live in Vietnam and you're set on it, I would recommend like going, because the thing is you have to do a visa run every 3 months. I recommend learning Vietnamese. It's the easiest. So go to like a city you want and like learn Vietnamese. But the thing is, if you learn Vietnamese, you have to exit out of the country. And then once you exit out of the country, then you have to re-enter on a student visa. It's very different than Cambodia. The whole visa situation is very complex. And the thing is, even if you get a job teaching English, right? Let's say you teach English and they fire you or you quit, your visa is invalid. So you have to leave the country and get a tourist visa. But what foreigners like to do that teach English, they try to secure a job, and then they think they're gonna get a job in 2 weeks, and then they can do that. It won't have any problem, like the paper trail will be fine, you'll get a new TRC. But then the problem is, it's 3 months, and then in Vietnam, if you overstay visa, it's a problem. Out of all the Southeast Asian countries, Vietnam is probably one of the worst countries to overstay your visa. Probably Vietnam, and then maybe Thailand now. Thailand wasn't like that, but Vietnam, I would not want to recommend ever overstaying visa in Vietnam, you know? And they're gonna crack down on that. So all the visa runs going to Laos, because the people from Da Nang, they go to Laos and come back, they're gonna crack down on that. So you're gonna have to rotate, either like fly out, you know, I mean, Cambodia, Vietnam, they're gonna do that, but I'm sure they're gonna start cracking down. The most common one's Da Nang to Laos, you know, but flying is the best bet if you're gonna do the visa run, in my opinion. And then if you really are set on living in Vietnam, I recommend like just studying Vietnamese, you know. Unless you want to teach English, you can teach English, but remember, if they fire you or you quit, you have to exit. So the visa situation is very complicated, and they don't have a retirement visa in Northern Vietnam. So that's kind of like all the legal shenanigans that they don't overhype about, you know, but I had a great time in Northern Vietnam with my partner, and it's one of the most beautiful parts of the region. However, you need a motorcycle to see this part of the region. And yes, you can drive a scooter, but technically it's illegal unless you have an international driver's license. So if you drive without an international driver's license for a motorcycle, you may have to pay a fine, you know, or they could take your scooter, worst case scenario. So of course, do people drive without a scooter? I mean, without an international driver's license? Of course, you know? So like, yeah, I mean, the easiest way would be to go to Cambodia, get the driver's license, motorcycle, and then get an international, and then go to Vietnam. You know, like either in Southeast Asia, like pick your base. Like getting a driver's license and any admin work through Vietnam and visa is very complicated. Probably more complicated than Cambodia or Thailand. You know, I don't know about Laos. I've never tried a long-term visa in Laos, but that's what I know. And a lot of people, they really don't talk about the visas. So I really enjoyed Northern Vietnam. It was amazing staying in Hanoi, but the problem was that me and my partner, like, it was a good fit, but it, like, there was nothing for us to do. So it was just like a slow travel. We turned into like a slow travel, you know? Like, she didn't really want to learn Vietnamese, and I didn't blame her, because this is a lot to take on. And then, yeah, it just wasn't for us, and I didn't want to teach English there. Like, it was just, I didn't want to work in the city. I'm sure they would have provided a work permit if I got into the city, but my first job that I was working at, they like kind of scammed me and told me in 6 months they would provide me a TRC, and I knew that they were just getting that so I would get in the door, because I said, hey, will you give me basically a work visa if I join this company? And I was only working one Friday, so I was like, sweet, I can work online, I can pay like money to learn golf. It was like affordable. I was excited. And my girlfriend, I talked to her and I was like, look, you can go learn Vietnamese, or you can just like, you know, like cook and learn English on Duolingo, and I'll put you in a Chinese or English class there, but you can't get a visa. It's like very like low-key, like less intensive than the school, but it doesn't provide a visa. And I was like, look, you can cook and clean and take care of the home. She's like totally cool with that. And you could do Chinese or English in like a low-key class, not like a college class, you know, but we'd have to do a visa run. But she was cool with that. And I'm like, look, how about we just do slow travel here in Hanoi and then relocate into Da Nang after we do our visa run. So then we do our visa run, we go to Singapore, and then we fly into Hanoi, and then from Hanoi we go to Da Nang. So that's how I ended up in Da Nang. But northern Vietnam is cool. We checked out Hanoi, and then we checked out Nam Ben. Nam Ben was really cool. It's starting to get on the map, so you gotta check it out. Really cool place. Just the geography was really cool. The architecture was kind of overhyped. A lot of fake crap, you know, in my opinion. And yeah, it was kind of giving me Thailand vibes, but not yet, you know. And then from Nam Ben, we checked out Cat Bay Island. Cat Bay Island's awesome, not overhyped, like the famous Hong Bay Island. I think Hong Bay, I may be mispronouncing it. The one above that's with the cool like rock formations, they have that on Cat Bay Island, really cool. We took a cable car there. My girlfriend was tired of cable cars. We've been on a million cable cars, but it was cool in my experience. And then we drove around the island on a scooter, and that was cool. You know, if you drive a scooter, you gotta take your risk. It's not them, it's you that take the risk. So I took the risk, you know, but I didn't have a problem. Usually in Vietnam, you won't have a problem driving a scooter without an international driver's license. However, they do check in like Da Nang and other like tourist areas, like in the northern region where people drive a motorcycle, just because people die or drive drunk or don't wear a helmet. But I always wear a helmet, and I always obeyed like Vietnamese traffic laws as much as I could. I didn't really run a red light unless like car was gonna kill me in the back, you know? So usually I didn't have a problem, but you know, everyone can have a problem. So if you drive without international driver's license, just get an international driver's license, it helps you, or get a driver's license. Southeast Asia will help you a little bit. But technically, the international driver's license, you're technically wrong. And I may be wrong, but the police, they just want to make money. So it's just a pain in the butt. So like, technically you need a Vietnamese driver's license. So even if you have an international, you could be wrong. So just get an international, just to have peace of mind. And if the police ask you for 500,000 dong is usually what they want to be like whatever, then you can be whatever, you know? But just remember, if you drive a scooter, you're in the wrong no matter what, unless you have a Vietnamese driver's license, you know? So anyway, so after that, we checked out that place, awesome. Then we went to Sapa. Sapa's really cool. It's starting to get like kind of commercialized, but if you drive a scooter outside of the area, very beautiful. And then after that, we went to Chiang Mai Thai. Highlight of the trip, amazing rice terraces, untouched, going back in time like medieval times. I think I had a video showing Chiang Mai Thai. It's so amazing. But yeah, the north region was awesome. I definitely would want to go back there and like actually like drive a motorcycle for real. And like, I'm working on that. I'm trying to get my Cambodian driver's license and get an international driver's license in Cambodia, but it's kind of complicated, so I might have to do that in Philippines, you know. But definitely, if I go back to there, I'm definitely gonna get a Cambodian driver's license and an international driver's license, where I can rent like a nice motorcycle instead of like some piece of crap scooter, you know. But technically, if you have an electric scooter, so what I did is I drove an electric scooter, but I was kind of like limited like where I could go. In some places, like in Hanoi, I drove an electric scooter. So they say, according to the law, it could always change. If you drive an electric scooter, you're like good to go. You don't have to pay. You don't have to pay you don't need an international driver's license for it. So I would drive it, and I would drive an electric scooter, but the problem was I was limited. So yeah, I got around. It was cool, you know. But I would definitely like to go back to Vietnam, drive a real motorcycle, and I'm confident because I've been driving in Cambodia. Like, you have to be very careful when you get on the road. It is very different than like in America, how they drive here. It is like taking your life in your hand. Like, I remember in Da Nang when I met this old guy, and he was really cool. Like, I was confused on the bus. Like in Vietnam, like sometimes they're kind of crazy. Like they yell at you. I was trying to find my bus, and like, you know, it's all in Vietnamese. I don't know what it's saying, you know, and it's just a lot of stuff going on. There's like 30 buses. And this old guy like grabs my hand, and he's like, oh, you're going to Da Nang, because he hears me say Da Nang, but he doesn't speak any English. And then he helps me find the bus, and then I'm talking to him, and he's telling me like, oh yeah, like in Google Translate, he's like, oh yeah, every day, like I try to drive the scooter, and I almost die every day. And I thought he was kidding until I like got on the scooter and started driving around. But yeah, these cars will kill you. They'll try to hit you for 20 points. They think everyone on the road, especially the buses and the trucks in Vietnam, think you're an NPC. So basically NPC, for my like older generation here, the younger generation knows what I mean. It's like a person in a video game. They think you're like whatever, like disposable, like slave, peasant, serf, whatever. And it's just crazy. Let's kill you, you know? If they see if you're a foreigner, sometimes they will be a little different, you know? But like, yeah, but the thing is, you never know. They don't know if you're a foreigner. They're like on the moon and it's crazy. So you have to be really careful how you drive. So I recommend like starting in Thailand. Don't drive in Vietnam unless you're like in the countryside, and be very careful because those buses will just choom, 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 just go through. They won't look. So just get confident on the scooter, like really confident until you get on it. And then in Vietnam, make sure that you have international driver's license, or if you live in Southeast Asia, get it in Thailand or whatever. Just the admin work and the bureaucracy is very difficult in Cambodia. And I know in Vietnam for the driver's license is way more complicated, you know? But yeah, northern Vietnam, awesome to visit, amazing place. Da Nang, central Vietnam, place to live. South Vietnam, the transit hub. If you got to transit in and out of Vietnam, southern Vietnam. If you want to go live somewhere, central Vietnam. If you wanna visit holiday, northern Vietnam. So yeah, that's kind of been my 3-part video of Vietnam, my experience so far. Basically last year, even though it's like about like 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago. So yeah, thanks everyone. If you listen this far, awesome. I hope I helped some of you out, and that's kind of been my experience so far.